I never planned to end up sleeping in my car at 27, but that's exactly where I was. Exhausted, heartbroken, scraping my future from the wreckage of lies that had robbed me of what I'd always believed was mine. By the time I realized how much was gone, it was too late to stop it. Someone I thought cared for our family, had quietly erased my inheritance, the trust my dad built for my education. And I didn't even see it coming. Growing up, our home felt safe. Sunday mornings were filled with the smell of pancakes, my dad humming while flipping batter. My mom created magic in the kitchen, baked cookies for my friends, and made every performance feel like a starring role. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, and we were together. My dad ran a modest business. He devoted his free hours to us, and every evening he would ask about my day with genuine curiosity. I'd lie on the window seat he built for me in my lavender-painted bedroom, reading for hours while he tinkered in the garage, or Mom planted flowers in the garden she adored. I believed that safety, hard work, and love could outlast anything. Those early memories, the little rituals, the laughter, the feeling of belonging, became my foundation. That was until the day my mom started having headaches that didn't go away. That turned into hospital visits, hushed doctor meetings in the living room, a stack of medical bills growing taller every day. When the diagnosis came, an aggressive brain tumor, inoperable, I was 12. Life stopped. Our kitchen became sterile, our living room turned into a place of silence and worry. Mom fought for 8 grueling months, 2 more than doctors predicted. But watching her fade was every bit as brutal as it sounds. Dad tried to be both parents. He juggled hospital bills, phone calls with insurers, and still showed up to tuck me in, like nothing had changed. But I could see the lines carved deeper into his face, the exhaustion coloring his voice when he thought I wasn't listening. Over dinner, he'd smile and ask about my day as though nothing was wrong, but his eyes would catch mine just long enough for me to know he was holding everything together with the last of his strength. I didn't have sleepovers or carefree afternoons anymore. I learned how to dose pills. I grew up in rooms with ventilation machines humming and nurses checking vitals. I became Dad's assistant, not his child, for emergencies that no 12-year-old should ever handle. When Mom passed that spring, the day was supposedly bright, the sky clear, buds unfurling. But the world shouldn't look so beautiful when your home just broke. Uncle Ray stood beside us at the cemetery, silent, hand on Dad's shoulder. It seemed right to reach for normal, but the pull of grief broke us all. Life changed after that. Dad poured himself into work. I held us to routines, cooking, cleaning, keeping the lights on as best I could. We never spoke her name out loud. We just leaned into each other, heavy with sorrow. Then Morgan entered our lives, Dad's new partner, then wife. At first she was warm. She complimented my sneakers. She offered to make dinner. I wanted to be happy for Dad, to believe this would soften things, bring him back. Morgan had 2 children, older, polite, curious. She asked about my school, thanked me for helping at home, but she was practiced, and I was naive enough to hope she meant well. We blended slowly. My bedroom, once mine by right, was quietly reimagined. Photos of Mom disappeared from shared spaces. Hers replaced them. Memories felt edited. When I asked, Morgan smiled and said, "It's time to move forward." But it felt like leaving pieces behind. I stayed quiet. I convinced myself that Dad was happy, that maybe small sacrifices were worth bigger peace. Until Dad died, suddenly, in a car crash. In one moment, our home lost its anchor. At the funeral, Morgan claimed center stage. She orchestrated every detail: casket, flowers, program notes. There were no references to Dad's favorite jazz records, his terrible yet endearing jokes, or the heart-shaped pancakes he made on anniversaries. It didn't feel like a tribute. It felt like a performance. When the lawyer called us in to talk about the will, I thought I might have some clarity. I had been his daughter. Of course, whatever he left would go to me. But Morgan was named trustee of the Education Trust until I turned 25. The business was hers, The house would eventually be hers. I didn't trust the words around the table. I understood them too well, so I made a choice. College would happen, no matter who tried to stop it. I took a job at a coffee shop before dawn, and another at a bookstore in the evening. I learned to sleep in uncomfortable places, stretch what little money I had, and make the library my sanctuary. I told friends I was broke, not homeless. I dressed neatly and smiled even when my back and feet begged for rest. But there came a moment when I couldn't pretend anymore. That's when reality caught up. The judgments about my spending, the silence about my past, the way Morgan controlled every cent that wasn't hers. It was suffocating. After the funeral, it became clear that nothing I remembered as home was going to survive. Morgan took control like she'd been waiting for it, handling the estate, the finances, even the photos on the walls. My mother's picture vanished from the mantel. When I asked about it, Morgan said softly, "It's not healthy to live in the past, sweetheart. We need to move forward." Forward, in her case, meant erasing anything that didn't include her and her children. The first time she called a family meeting, I was barely listening. She sat with Brandon and Zoe flanking her on either side like loyal guards. "Now that the formalities are behind us," she began, "we need to make some practical arrangements." That's when she told me I'd be moving upstairs, to the attic. "Brandon needs your room," she said. "He'll be commuting to college and needs the space for his weights, his books, his future." I blinked. "That's my room. That's where I grew up." Her expression didn't shift. "This house belongs to me now. I think your father would want what's best for all of us." She smiled when she said it. That practiced, soft, venomous smile. Brandon and Zoe boxed up my things that night. My journals, my photos, my mother's favorite scarf. Some of it vanished. Some of it was water damaged by the time I found the boxes in the garage weeks later. And still, I said nothing. I couldn't risk confrontation, not with Morgan in charge of my trust. The money my father had saved for my education, for my future, now flowed through her. And she made sure I remembered that. When I needed money for a school trip, "Frivolous," she said. "College is expensive." When I needed a new laptop for coursework, "You can use the family desktop," she replied, even though it froze every 10 minutes and sat in the dining room with zero privacy. I was a burden in my own home, and every time I protested, Morgan would sigh and say, "You're at that age. Everything feels personal. Your father would want you to be grateful." She weaponized my grief. She twisted my silence into compliance. So I adapted. I studied harder, got a part-time job, then another. I ate meals at work to stretch what little I earned. I limited how often I came home. And when I did, I tried not to notice that more of my things had been replaced by Brandon's gym equipment or Zoe's art installations. The final straw came the summer before my junior year. I'd come home briefly between semesters to gather some things, only to find my attic room completely empty. In its place was a sleek modern workout room. Mirrors on the walls, rubber flooring, a brand new treadmill gleaming in the corner. My mattress was gone, my desk gone. Every trace of me had been removed. "Where are my things?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Morgan barely looked up. "Most of it's in the garage. I thought you weren't coming back. You're barely here anymore." "I still live here," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "You could have fooled me." That night, I sat cross-legged in the garage, flipping through soggy photo albums and holding what little remained of my childhood. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just packed a duffel bag, took my keys, and drove. I didn't have a plan, but I had my car, and I had my name. Alex, my father's daughter. For the next few weeks, that's all I had. The first night sleeping in my Honda was terrifying. I parked behind a Walmart near campus, reclining the seat as far back as it would go. I arranged my blanket, thin and barely warm, and tried to convince myself this was temporary, a hiccup, a test I would pass. By day, I worked. The morning shift at a coffee shop near the university. The evening shift at a retail store in the mall. Between jobs, I'd change in gym bathrooms, eat granola bars in library corners, and pretend everything was normal. No one knew, not my coworkers, not my classmates. I smiled, laughed, worked double shifts, and submitted papers on time. But I lived out of my trunk. My car became a closet, kitchen, bedroom, and fortress. I found a gym that opened at 5 a.m. and joined for the showers. I mapped out quiet streets and parking lots where I wouldn't be noticed. I kept an emergency fund, hidden in my shoe, just in case. There were nights I almost gave up. Nights when the cold crept into my bones, when hunger gnawed at my focus, when shame made me avoid my own reflection. But something inside me refused to break. I would graduate, I would survive. And one day, I would look Morgan in the eye with everything she tried to take from me firmly in my hands. Still, the isolation was brutal. You can only say, "I'm fine," so many times before it stops sounding like a lie and starts feeling like armor. I avoided old friends, skipped invitations. I lived under the radar, clean, quiet, invisible, until the morning everything changed. I was behind the counter at the coffee shop. The morning rush had just ended, and I was wiping down the espresso machine when I heard someone say, "Black coffee, medium, no room." The voice. It was familiar, low, confident, and out of place in that fluorescent-lit cafe. I turned, and there he was, Uncle Ray, grayer than I remembered but unmistakable. Same posture, same intense gaze, same tie and collar crispness that screamed real estate mogul. "Alex," he said slowly. I froze. I hadn't seen him since the funeral. "Hey, Uncle Ray," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "It's been a while." He stepped aside for the next customer and waited at the end of the counter. I handed him his coffee, and he tilted his head, studying my face. "You look tired," he said, not unkindly. I smiled, automatically. "Busy semester." There was a pause. Then, "Can you take a break?" I hesitated. My manager glanced over from the back, then nodded at me. I untied my apron and stepped around the counter. Ray found a corner table and gestured for me to sit. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Working." "I can see that, but why?" I swallowed. "Just helping pay for school." "Your father set up a trust for that." I looked away. "It's complicated." He leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly. "Alex, where are you living right now?" That did it. The smile cracked. My shoulders slumped. And the words came pouring out. I told him everything. The attic, the garage, the control, the trust, the jobs, the nights in the car, the morning showers at the gym, the silence, the survival. Ray didn't interrupt. Not once. When I finished, I couldn't look at him. I waited for the judgment, the pity, the discomfort. What I heard instead was fury. "Pack your things," he said quietly. "You're not sleeping in your car another night." I opened my mouth to protest, to say I was managing, that I had a system. He shook his head. "No niece of mine lives like that. Not while I'm breathing." I hadn't expected a rescue. I hadn't asked for one. But somehow, in that corner of a coffee shop, I'd been seen. And what came next would unravel everything Morgan had carefully hidden and give me back the future I thought I'd lost. That night, I didn't sleep in my car. I slept in a real bed, with sheets that smelled clean, a door that locked, and no fear of being asked to leave in the middle of the night. Uncle Ray's home was like something out of a lifestyle magazine, modern, open, expensive. But what mattered most was the feeling of being wanted there. At breakfast, he laid out his plan like a general preparing for war. "I've already called my attorney," he said. "We meet at 10. You'll tell him everything." I blinked. "But what can we do? She's the trustee." Ray smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "Not for long." Ray's attorney was a sharp-eyed man named Mr. Greenberg. Thin, calm, and terrifyingly focused. He took notes in silence as I told my story again, this time in full detail. When I finished, he sat back, tapping his pen against the legal pad. "We'll start with the financials," he said. "If she's diverted any money from the trust, we'll find it. Trustees are bound by law. Misuse of funds, especially for personal benefit, is both civilly actionable and potentially criminal." Ray added, We're not just getting your money back, Alex. We're holding her accountable. For the first time in years, I felt protected. The investigation was fast. Greenberg pulled bank statements, tax records, business documents. Every paper trail Morgan had tried to bury. A forensic accountant went through it all with surgical precision. It didn't take long. Within 2 weeks, they had the proof. Over $200,000 siphoned from my trust fund, disguised as business investments, emergency loans, and family operating costs. There were no contracts, no board approvals, no repayments. Worse, she'd been paying herself a trustee fee 5 times the standard amount. She'd bought Brandon a car, paid for Zoe's art retreat, covered business losses, personal vacations, renovations to the house, all from the account my dad had left for my education and future. Mr. Greenberg laid the documents in front of me. Mismanagement would have been bad enough, he said. But this is deliberate theft, fraud. If you'd like to press charges, we can take this to court tomorrow. Ray turned to me. This is your decision, Alex. I stared at the numbers, at the receipts, at the evidence that everything I suspected, everything I felt, was real. I want both, I said, civil and criminal. Ray nodded once. Good. Let's end this. The confrontation happened in Greenberg's office. Morgan arrived with her own lawyer, nervous, disheveled, already on the defensive. She looked surprised to see me there. Alex, she said, feigning warmth. I didn't realize you were... Save it, I said. My voice didn't shake. Hers did. Mr. Greenberg didn't waste time. He went down the list. The withdrawals, the false reports, the lack of contracts, the trustee overpayments. He had tabs, timestamps, receipts. Morgan's face got paler with each page. These were legitimate business decisions, she finally said. Your father would have wanted the company preserved for her future. This was all strategic. Greenberg didn't even blink. Then where's the paperwork? Why were the transactions concealed? And why were personal expenses paid directly from the trust account? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at her lawyer, who was already sweating. Ray leaned forward. You used my brother's death as a blank check. And while Alex was sleeping in her car, you were buying treadmill equipment with her inheritance. Morgan's face contorted. She chose to leave. She was difficult, ungrateful. I tried to make her feel part of the family. I finally spoke. You erased my mother from the house. You took my room. You destroyed my things. You lied to my father while he was alive and stole from me after he was gone. Don't pretend this was love. It was always about control. Her voice rose. You think you're better than us. Your dad coddled you. You didn't know how hard things were. I kept the business afloat. I made sacrifices. Greenberg cut in. You made illegal withdrawals. You committed fraud. You violated every principle of fiduciary duty. We can settle this today or take it to court. But either way, your time as trustee is over. Her lawyer finally spoke up. We'd like to discuss settlement terms. The settlement was brutal, but fair. Morgan was removed as trustee immediately. Ray was installed in her place. She was forced to repay every cent, plus penalties. To do so, she had to liquidate part of her share of the family business. She also signed a legally binding agreement that barred her from managing any trust or estate in the future. And then came the criminal charges. Greenberg had already submitted the evidence to the district attorney's office. The state launched a separate investigation. Morgan eventually took a plea deal: probation, public service, financial restitution, and a permanent mark on her record. As for Brandon and Zoe, they vanished, moved out of state. Quietly, I never saw them again. With Ray managing the trust, the damage was reversed. My tuition was secured, my housing stable. I moved into a safe apartment near campus and quit one of my 2 jobs. I even got new clothes, a real mattress, a lock on my door. It wasn't about luxury, it was about breathing again. Ray insisted on transparency. He gave me monthly updates, showed me how the trust worked, helped me budget for the future, but more than that, he gave me back a sense of family. Every Sunday we had dinner, just the 2 of us. Sometimes we talked about my dad, sometimes about nothing at all, but always, always with trust. He never once made me feel like a burden. One night, a few weeks after the case ended, I asked him why he'd helped me. "I was there when you were born," he said. "Held you before your dad even did. He told me, she's going to do great things. I failed you when I didn't stay in touch after he died. But I wasn't going to fail again." I choked back tears, and I promised myself I'd make something of the life I got back, because now it was mine again. But that left one final question. Now that I had the power back, what would I do with it? The business was under professional management, and I had a decision to make. Sell it, keep it, step into it one day? I didn't know yet, but I did know this. Morgan's reign was over. The past didn't own me anymore, and the rest of my life, that part was mine to write. Victory doesn't feel how I thought it would. I thought once Morgan was out, once the trust was safe, once I had a bed of my own, I'd be fine. But healing doesn't come with a court ruling. Even with my freedom back, I couldn't stop checking locks twice, or waking up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, certain I was still in my car. I hoarded food, kept a go bag packed in my closet. I felt like if I relaxed, the whole world would collapse again. Uncle Ray noticed. "You're safe now," he said one Sunday dinner, "but you don't feel safe yet." I nodded, silent. "I think you should talk to someone." I wanted to protest, to say I was handling it, but I wasn't, not really. And so I started seeing Dr. Morales. Therapy didn't magically fix things, but it helped me understand what had broken. I hadn't just lost my parents. I'd been slowly erased, my space, my voice, my worth, by someone who knew exactly how to twist love into control. Dr. Morales helped me name things: gaslighting, emotional abuse, disenfranchised grief. She helped me see that surviving in silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. And now, healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant remembering fully, without shame. I began to breathe differently, not deeply, not always, but freely. Ray supported me through it all. He showed me photos of my dad I'd never seen, told me stories about when they were kids, how Dad built the business, how proud he was the day I was born. He used to say, "She's going to be braver than both of us," Ray told me once. I think he was right. Sunday dinners became sacred. We made our own traditions, cooked new recipes, watched bad movies, laughed. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere again, and that made me want to give something back. I started volunteering at a youth shelter near campus. I didn't tell them my full story, just listened, cleaned, helped with resumes, packed lunches, sat with kids who didn't want to talk but didn't want to be alone either. It shocked me how many of them were college age, just like I had been, living in cars, couch surfing, pretending to be fine in class while their lives were unraveling off campus. I understood them, and they saw that. Eventually, I was offered a part-time job coordinating services for unhoused students. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't high-paying, but it felt real, and I was good at it. I adjusted my major, shifting from pure business to nonprofit management and social entrepreneurship. I began building a plan, a future foundation for youth in crisis, not just housing, but education, legal aid, financial literacy. A roadmap out, not just a rescue. Dr. Patel, my professor who once extended a deadline when I was falling apart, became my mentor. She read every draft of my senior thesis. It was titled Invisible Futures: Housing Insecurity Among College Students and What We Can Do About It. It wasn't just research. It was me. Graduation day came with sun and a strange calm. Ray was in the front row. I walked across the stage. And for a moment, I swear I could hear my dad's voice. "You did it, Sammy. I knew you could." I graduated with honors. No more secrets. No more hiding. Just a future wide open, and finally mine. After graduation, I had a choice to make. The business, my dad's company, was stable under professional management. Ray asked me what I wanted to do. Sell it, take over, keep the team in place? I didn't know, so we compromised. I retained ownership, stayed on as a board member, and worked closely with the team, focusing on ethics, employee treatment, and transparency. I wasn't ready to lead it, but I was ready to protect it. On my terms, and for the right reasons, the trust fund was now fully under my control. Ray gave me one last set of documents. "I've done my part," he said with a smile. "Now it's yours." I thanked him with more than words. I thanked him by using it well. No luxury cars, no reckless splurges. I used it to build a foundation for myself and others. My apartment was small, but beautiful. My life, even more so. Morgan never apologized. Brandon and Zoe never reached out. I don't think they ever will. And that's okay. They're not my story anymore. They're just the chapters that taught me what strength really looks like. The scars remain. I still flinch at sudden noises. Still carry a backup key. Still wake sometimes wondering where I am. But I also wake with purpose, with peace, and with power that no one can take away again. If you've made it this far, I want you to know this. Resilience isn't about staying strong alone. It's about refusing to stay small after being silenced. You can heal, you can rebuild. And sometimes your darkest moment is just the part of the story right before someone says, "You're not alone anymore." If this story moved you, drop a comment. Have you ever had to start over? Ever been the person who showed up for someone else in their darkest hour? Share it. Someone might need to read your words more than you know. And if you haven't already, hit that like, share, and subscribe. Because this story, it's still being written, and so is yours.